The champagne flutes clinked around me like tiny bells of mockery. I stood in the corner of the rooftop party, nursing a club soda, watching my wife Lisa work the room with the precision of a seasoned politician. Her red dress caught the city lights as she laughed, that practiced musical laugh she reserved for people she wanted to impress. I'd known this party would be different from our usual Friday nights. Marcus Chen was hosting it. The Marcus Chen, the billionaire venture capitalist whose face graced the covers of Forbes and Fortune. Lisa had been talking about this party for weeks, ever since her firm had landed his company as a client. "Daniel, you have to come," she'd insisted. "This could be huge for us. I remembered when that phrase actually meant something. I adjusted my off-the-rack blazer, suddenly aware of how shabby I must look among these tailored suits and designer dresses. My startup had been bleeding money for 18 months. The revolutionary AI algorithm I'd developed for sustainable urban planning was brilliant. My professors had said so, my beta testers had confirmed it, but brilliant didn't pay the bills. Not yet. Lisa glided across the marble floor toward the man himself. Marcus Chen stood at the center of a gravitational pull of wealth and influence, a glass of scotch in his hand, his silver watch catching the light with every gesture. He was handsome in that manufactured way. Personal trainer, nutritionist, probably a stylist too. Everything about him screamed success. I watched Lisa touch his arm, lean in close to whisper something. He threw his head back and laughed. She glowed under his attention like a plant finally finding sunlight. My phone buzzed. Another notification from the bank about our overdrawn account. I silenced it. "Your wife is quite charming." The voice beside me belonged to Richard, an old colleague from my previous corporate job. "Marcus seems taken with her." "She's networking," I said, the words tasting like ash. "Sure. Networking." Richard's tone suggested he saw what I was refusing to acknowledge. The evening dragged on. I made small talk with people who looked through me rather than at me. When they asked what I did, their eyes glazed over at urban planning algorithm. Nobody wanted to fund infrastructure. It wasn't sexy. It wasn't the next social media phenomenon or cryptocurrency scheme. Around midnight, I found Lisa on the balcony. The city sprawled below us, a circuit board of lights and possibility. "Ready to go?" I asked. She turned, and something in her expression made my stomach drop. It was the look someone gives when they've already made a decision and are just waiting for the right moment to announce it. "Daniel, Marcus offered me a ride home. He wants to discuss some opportunities. Opportunities. Business opportunities. His fund is looking for legal counsel and—" "It's midnight, Lisa." Her jaw tightened. "Don't be like that. This is important. I'm your husband. And I'm trying to build a career. One of us has to be practical." The words hit like a slap. "Your little project has been almost there for 2 years. We're drowning in debt. I can't keep carrying us. I work 80-hour weeks on something that hasn't made a single dollar." Her voice rose, then dropped to a harsh whisper. "I love you, Daniel, but I can't watch us sink anymore. Marcus sees potential in me. Real potential. Lisa, I'm going with him. We'll talk tomorrow." She walked past me without another glance. I stood there, frozen, as she rejoined Marcus. He placed his hand on the small of her back, my wife's back, and guided her toward the exit. I followed, some desperate instinct pulling me forward. In the lobby, Marcus's driver held open the door of a black Mercedes S-Class. Lisa slid into the leather interior without looking back. Marcus paused before entering. Our eyes met. He smiled, not with warmth, but with the satisfied smirk of a man who'd just acquired something valuable. He reached into his wallet, pulled out a crisp dollar bill, and flicked it at me. It fluttered to the marble floor between us. "Keep the change, buddy," he said. "Buy yourself something nice." Then he was gone, and so was she. I stood in that empty lobby for a long time, staring at that dollar bill on the floor. Eventually, I bent down and picked it up. I folded it carefully and placed it in my wallet, right behind my maxed-out credit card. Some insults you remember, some you keep. 3 days passed before Lisa came home. 3 days where I called, texted, and waited. When she finally walked through the door of our modest apartment, she looked different. Not just tired, but transformed. She was wearing clothes I'd never seen before, carrying shopping bags from stores we couldn't afford. "We need to talk," she said, setting down her bags without making eye contact. I'd been sleeping on the couch, buried in code, running my algorithm through simulations that showed impossible promise. Cities rebuilt efficiently, resources allocated perfectly, carbon footprint slashed. But none of it mattered because nobody believed enough to invest. Where have you been? My voice was hoarse from disuse. Daniel. She sat down across from me, maintaining careful distance. I've been thinking about us, about our future. We want different things. We want the same things. A life together. Success. Family. I want security, stability. You want to chase a dream that's bankrupting us. She pulled an envelope from her purse. I've spoken with an attorney. A good one. Marcus recommended her. The envelope landed on the coffee table between us like a bomb. Divorce papers. Not a question. I could see it in her eyes. The decision was already made. I was just the last to know. I'm 34 years old, Daniel. My biological clock is ticking. I need a partner who can provide the life I deserve, not someone who asks me to invest in maybes. Her voice was steady, practiced. She'd rehearsed this. Marcus has already offered me a position as his company's chief legal counsel. The salary is unsubstantial at Marcus. I tasted bile. How convenient. Don't make this ugly. I'm trying to be fair. You can keep the apartment. I'll take over the lease. I'm not asking for alimony. I just want to move forward. Forward. I laughed, a sound without humor. You mean move up? Into his penthouse, probably? She stood, smoothing her expensive new skirt. I'll send a moving company for my things. Please sign the papers, Daniel. Don't drag this out, she left. The door clicked shut with such finality that it took me a moment to realize I was alone. Actually, truly alone. I opened the envelope with shaking hands. The legal language blurred together, but I saw the key points clearly enough. Irreconcilable differences. No-fault divorce. Split of minimal assets. We had almost nothing worth dividing anyway. I signed the papers that night. The next morning, I took the dollar bill from my wallet and pinned it to the wall above my desk. A reminder. A promise. Some people thought that was all I was worth. I would prove them wrong. The algorithm I'd been developing wasn't just code, it was a revolution. Urban planners spent millions on inefficient studies. My AI could do in hours what took them years with a fraction of the error rate. The problem was scale. I needed real-world implementation, massive data sets, proof of concept that went beyond simulations. I spent the next 2 weeks in a fog of caffeine and determination. I reached out to every contact I'd ever made, every professor, every former colleague. Most ignored me. Some politely declined. A few laughed. Then I got an email from Dr. Sarah Okonkwo, my former thesis advisor. She'd moved to Ghana and was now consulting for the African Development Bank. They were planning a massive urbanization initiative. 15 cities across 6 countries needed complete infrastructure overhauls. Your algorithm, she wrote, might be exactly what we need. The budget is modest, but if you can prove it works, modest. The budget was barely enough to cover costs. But it was real. It was a chance. I took out a personal loan, maxing out my credit even further. I bought a plane ticket to Accra. If I was going to fail, I'd fail spectacularly. Lisa posted a photo on social media the day before I left. She was at some charity gala wearing diamonds, standing beside Marcus Chen. Her smile was radiant. The caption read, "With my favorite investor. Excited for new beginnings." I looked at my own reflection in the dark window of my empty apartment. Unshaven, exhausted, broke. But my eyes were clear. I knew something they didn't. I wasn't done. Not even close. The flight to Accra was 17 hours. I spent every minute refining my pitch, running scenarios, preparing for every possible objection. Dr. Okonkwo had scheduled meetings with development ministers, urban planners, and infrastructure chiefs. You'll have one shot, she'd warned me. Don't waste it. I wouldn't. Couldn't. This was everything. Ghana's capital sprawled below as we descended, a maze of old and new, traditional and modern. Somewhere in that complexity was an answer. My algorithm could find it. The meetings were brutal. Skeptical officials, limited English translation, technical questions I had to answer through multiple interpreters. But the numbers spoke for themselves. When I showed them the projections, 20% reduction in construction costs, 40% improvement in traffic flow, 60% decrease in utility waste, the room went silent. This is unprecedented, the Minister of Urban Development said through the translator. If accurate, let me prove it, I said. Give me one district. 3 months. If I'm wrong, you pay nothing. It was a gamble I couldn't afford, but they accepted. 3 months in Kumasi, Ghana's second largest city. I lived in a modest hotel, worked 18-hour days, collaborated with local engineers who knew the terrain, the culture, the reality of African urban development. The algorithm learned, adapted, evolved, and it worked. The results from Kumasi exceeded every projection. Traffic congestion in the test district dropped by 43% in the first month. Water distribution efficiency improved by 67%. Energy costs decreased by 31%. But the real victory wasn't in the numbers. It was in the faces of the people who lived there. I walked through the neighborhood with Dr. Okonkwo on the final day of the pilot program. A woman who ran a small market grabbed my hand. "Before we wait 3 hours for water every day," she said in broken English. "Now water comes always. My children, they can go to school on time now. Thank you." That moment, that simple thank you was worth more than any investor pitch had ever made me feel. The African Development Bank didn't just approve my algorithm for the remaining 14 cities. They funded it completely and insisted on an exclusive 5-year contract. The number they offered made me blink twice. It was more money than I'd ever imagined seeing in my life. But Dr. Okonkwo pulled me aside before I signed. "Daniel, this is your leverage moment. Don't just take the money. Think bigger. Bigger how? You've proven it works in developing nations. Now take it to Europe, Asia, North America. Scale globally. Create a platform that cities license. This isn't just a project, it's a company." She introduced me to investors she knew, real ones who understood infrastructure, sustainability, long-term value creation. Not the flashy Silicon Valley types chasing the next app. These were serious people with serious money who saw what I'd built. Within 6 months, I had seed funding. Within 8 months, I'd returned to Boston and assembled a team. Within 10 months, Urban Flow Technologies had signed contracts with 3 major American cities and was in talks with 12 more. The media caught on slowly, then all at once. The algorithm that's rebuilding cities. From failure to infrastructure revolutionary. Meet the man making urban planning sexy. I hated the attention, but understood its necessity. Every article, every interview was credibility. Every contract was proof. My team grew from 5 to 50 to 200. We moved from my apartment to a real office, then to 3 floors in a downtown high-rise. I hired brilliant engineers, urban planners, data scientists, people who saw what I saw, the possibility of making cities work better for everyone. I didn't think about Lisa. I didn't have time. But I saw her occasionally, in my social media periphery. She'd married Marcus Chen in a ceremony that looked like a royal wedding. She was living the life she'd wanted. Penthouses, charity galas, vacation photos from Santorini and the Maldives. Good for her. I meant it, mostly. My lawyer called on a Tuesday afternoon 18 months after Lisa had handed me those divorce papers. "Daniel, you need to see this." He sent me a link to a Wall Street Journal article. The headline made my pulse quicken. "Chen Capital under federal investigation for fraud." I read it 3 times. Marcus Chen's venture fund, the golden empire he'd built, was allegedly a sophisticated Ponzi scheme. He'd been inflating valuations, cooking books, promising returns he couldn't deliver. Investors were panicking. The SEC had frozen assets. Criminal charges were pending. The fund was collapsing spectacularly. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt oddly empty. Marcus Chen wasn't my enemy. He was just a man who'd made terrible choices. But then I remembered that dollar bill. The smirk, the casual cruelty, that helped. My assistant knocked on my door. "Daniel, your 3 o'clock is here." "The launch party planner?" Right, the launch party. Urban Flow was going public. We'd finalized the IPO paperwork, and the opening bell ceremony was scheduled for next month. The party was our moment to celebrate with everyone who'd believed in us, invested in us, built this with us. Send her in. As I planned the biggest night of my professional life, I made one specific request. I wanted that party held at the same venue where I'd been humiliated. The same rooftop where Lisa had left with Marcus Chen, where he'd thrown me $1 and told me to keep the change. The planner looked confused. "That's an expensive venue, but we have better options." "That one," I said. "Exactly that one," she shrugged. "You're the boss, the invitations went out." Media, investors, city officials, every stakeholder who'd been part of Urban Flow's journey. We were celebrating more than just going public. We were celebrating proof that sustainable technology could be profitable, that helping people could be good business. I was reviewing the guest list when I saw her name on the RSVP list, Lisa Chen. She'd used his last name even though the marriage was likely heading for its own collapse now that his empire was burning. She'd accepted the invitation. I stared at that name for a long moment. Then I went to my desk, opened the drawer, and pulled out my old wallet. The dollar bill was still there, creased from being folded and unfolded so many times, slightly faded but unmistakable. I'd carried it through Ghana, through every difficult moment, every doubt. A reminder of how low I'd been, how far I'd come. Now it would serve one final purpose. The night of the launch party arrived with the kind of perfect weather that felt almost orchestrated. Clear skies, comfortable temperature, the city lights creating a glittering backdrop. I stood on the same rooftop where my humiliation had occurred 20 months earlier. But everything was different now. The space was packed with people who actually wanted to be there. My team celebrated around me. Engineers who'd coded through nights, planners who'd fought for every permit, investors who'd believed when belief was expensive. Dr. Okonkwo had flown in from Accra, wearing traditional Ghanaian attire and beaming with pride. "You did it," she said, raising her glass. "You actually did it." "We did it," I corrected. None of this happens without Kumasi. The media was everywhere. Bloomberg, Forbes, TechCrunch. They all wanted the story of Urban Flow's meteoric rise. I'd given a dozen interviews already, my face tired from maintaining a gracious smile. But I wasn't really present. I was watching the elevator waiting. She arrived at 8:47 p.m. I knew because I'd been checking my watch obsessively. Lisa emerged from the elevator wearing a black dress, elegant but subdued, nothing like the bold red she'd worn before. She looked thinner, older somehow, despite only 20 months passing. The confidence that had radiated from her that night was gone, replaced by something more uncertain. She scanned the room, spotted me, and our eyes locked across the crowd. I didn't go to her immediately. I let her navigate the party, watching as she realized she knew almost no one here. These weren't Marcus's people, they were mine. Self-made entrepreneurs, academics, public servants, people who built things rather than just invested in them. I saw her accept a glass of champagne from a waiter, saw her checking her phone repeatedly. She was uncomfortable. Good. My CFO, Jennifer, appeared at my elbow. "The woman in black by the ice sculpture. That's her, isn't it? Your ex-wife? How did you know?" "You've been staring for 20 minutes. Also, I Googled you. I Google everyone I work with." She studied Lisa with professional detachment. "She doesn't look happy. Her husband's company is under federal investigation. His assets are frozen. She's probably realized her security was built on fraud. Karma's a bitch." "Jennifer." "What? I'm CFO. I'm allowed to appreciate when numbers work out." She patted my shoulder. "Go do whatever you're going to do. Just don't make it criminal. I'd like to stay out of jail." I made my way through the crowd, accepting congratulations and handshakes. By the time I reached Lisa, she'd positioned herself in a corner, almost hiding. "Lisa." She turned, attempting a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Daniel, congratulations. This is impressive. Thank you for coming. I wasn't sure if I should, but I wanted to see—" She trailed off, gesturing vaguely at the party. "I wanted to see that you're okay. That you succeeded, did you?" She flinched. "I deserve that. I deserve a lot worse than that." We stood in awkward silence for a moment. Up close, I could see the strain in her face. The expensive clothes couldn't hide the stress. "Marcus is going to prison," she said quietly. "The lawyers say it's inevitable. They're finding evidence of fraud going back 8 years. Everything was fake, the returns, the success stories, all of it. I'm sorry. Are you?" I considered the question honestly. "I'm sorry you're hurt. I'm not sorry justice is being served." She nodded slowly. "Fair, I made my choice. I chose money over integrity, security over love. I chose a lie that looked pretty over a truth that was hard. Why did you come tonight, Lisa? Because I needed to see what I gave up. Because I needed to apologize to your face, not hide behind text messages." She met my eyes fully for the first time. "I'm sorry, Daniel, for leaving you when you needed support, for choosing someone else's wealth over your potential, for not believing in you when you needed someone to believe. The apology was sincere, I could hear it. But it was also 20 months too late. I appreciate you saying that. But it doesn't change anything. No, it doesn't. She took a shaky breath. I'm leaving Boston, going back to Texas where my parents are. Starting over. I wanted to see you before I left, to tell you that I'm proud of what you built. You changed the world, Daniel, like you always said you would. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the dollar bill. It was worn now, the edges soft from being carried so long. I unfolded it carefully and placed it on the high-top table next to her champagne glass. She stared at it, confused. Then recognition dawned and her face went pale. Keep the change, I said softly. Buy yourself something nice. Her hand flew to her mouth. Tears started streaming down her face, but she didn't make a sound. She just stood there, crying silently, staring at that dollar bill like it was a mirror reflecting every mistake she'd made. I felt no triumph, no satisfaction, just a deep, tired relief that this chapter was finally closing. Goodbye, Lisa. I walked away, back into the warmth and noise of celebration, leaving her alone in that corner with her regrets and a faded dollar bill. 3 years later, I stood in the same city but in an entirely different world. Urban flow technologies had revolutionized infrastructure planning across 46 countries. Our algorithm had improved the lives of an estimated 200 million people. The company's valuation had reached $8 billion, but numbers were just numbers. What mattered more was the email I'd received that morning from a teacher in Lagos, Nigeria. Because of your system, our school finally has reliable electricity. My students can study at night. You gave them a future. That's what I'd been chasing all along. Not wealth, not revenge, just the satisfaction of building something meaningful. I was in my office when my assistant buzzed. Daniel, there's someone here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's important. Who is it? A pause. Lisa Chen. Well, Lisa Morrison again, apparently. She says she'll understand if you don't want to see her. I almost said no. That chapter was closed. But curiosity won. Send her in. She looked different again, but this time the change was positive. Her hair was shorter, natural. She wore jeans and a simple blouse. The kind of casual outfit she used to wear when we were in graduate school together. Most strikingly, she looked at peace. I almost didn't come, she said, standing awkwardly by the door. I know I have no right to your time. Sit down, Lisa. She perched on the edge of the chair across from my desk. I'm in Boston for a conference. I work for a legal aid clinic in Austin now, helping low-income families with housing issues. The pay is terrible, she smiled slightly, but it's the most fulfilling work I've ever done. That's good. I'm glad you found something meaningful. I wanted to thank you for the wake-up call that night at your party. The dollar bill, it was exactly what I needed to see. I'd become someone I didn't recognize, chasing a life that was never really mine. You don't need to thank me for that. Maybe not. But I wanted you to know that it mattered. She pulled something from her purse, a newspaper clipping. Did you see this? It was an article about Marcus Chen's sentencing. 12 years in federal prison. Asset forfeiture. Restitution to investors who'd lost everything. I saw it, I said. He wrote me a letter from prison, apologizing, saying he'd dragged me down with him. She folded the clipping carefully. But he didn't. I climbed aboard voluntarily. I can't blame him for choices I made. We sat in silence for a moment. Outside my window, construction cranes dotted the skyline. One of them was building a housing project using urban flows planning. Affordable units with optimal sunlight, community spaces, efficient utilities. Making cities work for people who needed them most. Why did you really come here? I asked. She looked at me directly, no artifice. Because I wanted you to know I'm sorry. Really sorry. Not the hollow apology I gave you at the party, but a real one from someone who's done the work to understand what she did wrong. She took a breath. And because I wanted you to know that even though I don't deserve it, I'm happy you succeeded. Truly happy. You deserved all of this, thank you. That's it? Just thank you? What else is there to say, Lisa? We're different people now. You're doing good work. I'm doing good work. The past is past. She nodded slowly, accepting it. You're right. I guess I was hoping for, and she trailed off. It doesn't matter what I was hoping for. She stood to leave, and I found myself standing too. Lisa, for what it's worth, I forgive you. Not because you deserve it or because I'm noble. Just because carrying anger is exhausting and I have better things to do with my energy. Her eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. Thank you, Daniel. That's more grace than I had any right to expect. After she left, I sat at my desk for a long time, thinking about the strange journey from that night on the rooftop to now, how humiliation had become motivation, how losing everything had freed me to build something better. My phone rang. Dr. Okonkwo. Daniel, I have someone here who wants to meet you. The Minister of Urban Development for Kenya. They're planning Nairobi's complete overhaul, and they want Urban Flow to lead it. Send them the proposal packet. We can set up a call, and she wants to meet in person. She's very traditional. Face-to-face or nothing. I looked at my calendar. It was packed for months. But I thought about that teacher's email. About the woman at the market in Kumasi. About all the people whose lives improved when cities worked properly. Book my flight, I said. That evening, I cleaned out my desk drawer and found something I'd almost forgotten, the dollar bill. I'd tucked it away after the launch party and hadn't looked at it since. I held it up to the light. George Washington stared back at me, dignified and eternal. This bill had been my talisman, my reminder, my fuel, but I didn't need it anymore. I took it to the company's main lobby where we'd installed a donation box for urban development charities. I folded the dollar carefully one last time and dropped it in. Keep the change, I thought. Pass it forward. My phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer. Unofficial projections say we'll hit 10 billion valuation by end of quarter. Congratulations, boss. You're officially a billionaire. I stared at the message, then pocketed my phone without responding. Billionaire. The word felt abstract, meaningless. What did it matter compared to reliable electricity in Lagos? Efficient water systems in Kumasi? Housing that actually housed people? On my way out, I passed our conference room where the engineering team was still working late, arguing passionately about traffic flow algorithms for Mumbai. Their energy reminded me of myself in that tiny apartment, surviving on coffee and determination. Don't stay too late, I called out. The work will be here tomorrow. Says the guy who slept in his office for 3 months during the Ghana project, someone called back. Laughter rippled through the room. I smiled and left them to it. Outside, the city hummed with its usual chaos, cars honking, people rushing, construction noise, sirens in the distance. An imperfect, inefficient, beautiful mess of human civilization trying to function. But it could function better. That's what we were building. Not perfection, but improvement. Not utopia, but progress. My driver pulled up, but I waved him off. I wanted to walk. The office was only 15 blocks from my apartment, a modest 2-bedroom I'd kept despite being able to afford any property in the city. Some people thought it was strange that a billionaire lived so simply. They didn't understand. The point was never the money. Halfway home, I passed a small park where a community meeting was happening. I recognized the Urban Flow logo on a presentation board. Some of our junior planners were there, explaining to residents how the new traffic management system would affect their neighborhood. An elderly woman was asking questions, skeptical but engaged. One of our planners, a young woman named Maya who'd joined us fresh out of MIT, was patiently explaining, showing simulations, listening to concerns. This was the point. I didn't interrupt. Just watched for a moment, then continued walking. At home, I opened my laptop to find an email from Lisa's legal aid clinic. They were applying for a grant to improve housing code enforcement in Austin and wanted to know if Urban Flow could donate technical expertise. I forwarded it to our pro bono division with a note. Make this happen. Full support. Before bed, I stood by my window looking at the city lights, thinking about that night 3 years ago. The humiliation. The dollar bill. The moment I'd hit bottom and decided to dig deeper instead of give up. I thought about Marcus Chen in his prison cell, about Lisa in Austin trying to rebuild, about all the paths not taken, the choices that led here. Some people would say this was a revenge story, that I'd won and they'd lost. But that wasn't it at all. This was a story about resilience, about knowing your worth even when others don't see it, about building something meaningful instead of just building wealth. The dollar bill was long gone, donated and forgotten. But its lesson remained. Value is subjective until you prove otherwise. People will underestimate you. They'll mock you, leave you, bet against you. Let them. then build something so undeniable that their opinions become irrelevant. My phone buzzed one more time. Dr. Okonkwo. Kenya flight booked. Also, I have a friend in Bangladesh with an interesting urban flooding problem. Might be perfect for your next algorithm update. Interested? I smiled and typed back, always, because that was the truth. After everything, the divorce, the debt, the humiliation, the comeback, the success, I was exactly where I'd always wanted to be. Not at the top. Not victorious over enemies, just building, just helping, just proving that the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's becoming so thoroughly yourself that the people who doubted you simply stop mattering.